I have two incredible guests. Today, I have two brilliant men, and it is with my great pleasure that I introduce my husband. He's part of this podcast, Mark Murphy. So, Mark, would you do us the pleasure and introduce Dr. Williamson?
He's a board-certified neurologist. He's a proud Navy veteran. But Transcend Health, I think, is on the cutting edge of helping people create a better life and a better future for themselves. Welcome, Dr. Ryan Williamson, to the podcast.
Without an optimally functioning brain, we can't do anything. We can make all the plans in the world and we can, know all the people in the world and do all the things. But if we can't optimize our brain health, none of it matters.
In your book, The Incredible Brain, you give 4 steps and basically like a guideline, and you take people through these 4 steps.
People that wake up every day with a purpose actually live longer. That's a statistic. When we look at our design, these are the 5 key pillars that just make the biggest difference in the world for who makes it well into older age with good health and those who don't. We don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system.
But I think what you also realize that you want to have a life by design, because if your spouse hates you, if your kids hate you, if you're sick, if you're miserable, who cares how much money you have?
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Elevate Wellness. I am Lisa D. Murphy, and I have a very special treat today. Not only do I have one amazing guest, but I have 2 incredible guests. Today, I have 2 brilliant men, and it is with my great pleasure that I introduce my husband. He's part of this podcast, Mark Murphy. So, Mark, would you do us the pleasure and introduce Dr. Williamson?
When you've done what I've done, Lisa, for as long as I have, you get to meet a lot of people. But when I met Ryan, there was something very, very special about him. His bio, he's a board-certified neurologist. He's a proud Navy veteran. But Transcend Health, I think, is on the cutting edge of helping people create a better life and a better future for themselves. And so when I got to know Ryan, I thought he's somebody that we need to talk to, and that's how we got him to this platform. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome Dr. Ryan Williamson to the podcast.
Lisa, Mark, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Dr. Williamson, when Mark told me you were willing to do the podcast, personally, I was uber excited, as I don't think we really could do much without using our brain. And your field is so incredibly, the study in what you're doing right now with the brain is so incredibly timing, as so many people are suffering and being part of the sandwich generation. Not only are we dealing with issues with our children, but also with aging parents. And as a brilliant doctor, you could have chosen any field. What made you choose neurology?
It's a great question. And there are a lot of options on the table. But as I think back on it, what pushed me into medicine in the first place was personal suffering in my life. Quite literally, one of my first memories in life was at my grandmother's funeral. And I lost multiple relatives early in life that got these gears turning about, what is life and what is death and why do these terrible things happen to people? And I think that's a familiar story for many people that feel called into healthcare, But neurology in particular, one of those early losses was my maternal grandfather. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's before I was born. And my memories of him are effectively just being stuck in a wheelchair. And I write about this. It's a very emotional memory for me, but I remember being 5 years old and sitting in his condominium with him and my grandmother, watching someone shave his face. And I can still just picture his stoic, still just body and what he had to deal with. And so that, I didn't know what Parkinson's was when I was 5, of course. But again, as I pursued a career in medicine and started to learn about neuroanatomy and neurology, it just absolutely fascinated me. And I think where healthcare is headed and where the science is headed, especially with, as you mentioned, all these modern stressors that we deal with, without an optimally functioning brain, we can't do anything. we can make all the plans in the world, and we can, know all the people in the world, and do all the things. But if we can't optimize our brain health, I mean, we just, none of it matters. And so that really, that discipline, that field, that area of study, the direction everything's headed, that all just, that really got gears turning, like I said. And it was very fascinating. It's driven by personal loss. And then as I go through my studies, I realize that much of what neurologists actually do are sort of chasing our tails a bit, because I think many of us look at disease that presents in the later stages of life. And the opportunity is that so much of this is preventable, and the science is caught up there as well. So I'm very passionate about helping people understand that, understand how their brains work, understand how their bodies work, so they can elevate their performance, and of course, go do more of what we all want to do.
I am absolutely fascinated about what you're doing. Most people see a neurologist when the problem arises. And what you've chosen to do, both as a board certified neurologist and as a U.S. Navy vet, is coach people along the way. So will you talk about how you're positioning both medicine and your experience as a Navy veteran to really guide people, and why this, especially one-on-one and group coaching, I don't think there's anything more important than understanding our brain and how it works, and not waiting until the full-blown problem shows up to be treated. Can you tell us a little bit about the steps that you're doing, how we can participate, and how being a vet has tied to medicine for you?
Absolutely. So I always wanted to serve as well. So that was part of my medical training. I took a military scholarship for medical school through the Navy. And after I went through my neurology residency, I of course owed time afterwards. That's how that scholarship works. And I was fortunate enough to be stationed at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So I spent most of my active duty time with Marines. And I don't know if you all know any Marines, but they are some of the most elite, high performing individuals you could ever meet. And that was my first day in a uniform full time as a newly minted, fully residency trained board certified neurologist was as a junior doctor and a lieutenant. And so rather than seeing, again, patients like my grandfather, as I mentioned, on the later stages of life, the first handful of years of my clinical practice was seeing young, healthy, active duty service members. And what I didn't realize at the time is how much I truly enjoyed the performance aspect of that kind of clinical care. Meaning, I have, by definition, a bunch of very healthy, capable people in front of me who maybe have suffered a traumatic brain injury or a peripheral nerve injury, or maybe they've got some sleep issues or some PTSD or whatever it is they're dealing with. And my job at that time was to get that person back on the battlefield and, in a way, treat and coach them into elevated performance. And long story short, a 20-year career in the military wasn't going to be for me. A lot of reasons for that. But when I transitioned back into civilian medicine as a neurohospitalist, which is largely what I've been doing in the years since, I'm back in the hospital, and I'm treating neurologic emergencies like acute strokes and diagnosing things like dementia, or seeing people suffer these terrible heart attacks, and that they don't wake up because they have a massive brain injury. And I mean, it is sad to have these conversations with people over and over again, because the chronic diseases, so the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, the prediabetes, things like this that lead to these conditions are, when we look at the medical literature, Lisa, 70 to 90% of this, if not more, is absolutely preventable. And it's preventable through lifestyle, through what we do every day. So that kind of gets you through how the military ties in and what the experience was and the pain points to allow me to have this realization. And after having conversations one-on-one with patients just day in, day out, I've said, you know what, there's a better way. I can't keep doing this just patient to patient, person to person, because if I'm lucky, maybe I see 10 or 20 people a day. And those are only on the days that I practice. Hospital days are long. They're 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer. So, you can't do that 365 days a year. At least I don't know anyone that does. So I started thinking, how can I scale this for people, and how can I make this more accessible and more approachable? And so I decided about a year and a half ago I was going to write a book, which we published last month, The Incredible Brain. So I'm happy to go into a little bit of that if you'd like, but we hit bestseller. So I'm very thankful for that. I've had an amazingly positive response, and it's been helping people and changing lives, which is just warms my heart. And along with that, as Mark mentioned, we launched Transcend Health around the same time. And it really has taken me about a year to try to distill all these protocols and practices down into something simple. And I've come up with what I call the B.R.A.I.N protocol, B.R.A.I.N being an acronym, B.R.A.I.N. And I've actually modeled this after a military SOP. Military's got acronyms for days, so this is easy for me. But I wanted this to be memorable, easy, and approachable for people, because I think most people and most people in your audience surely have heard, well, yeah, it's diet and exercise. Like, I got to sleep better, got to lower my stress. I should be spending more time with my family. I think people know that, but it's very difficult for most people to drop what they're doing and approach it because of the chronic stress that we're all under, as you mentioned a few minutes ago. And it just feels like one more thing that somebody has to go do. And so putting that in a framework and having purpose and the end goal in mind be the guiding light and the compass heading, and then reverse engineering that plan through something that's simple.
In your book, The Incredible Brain, you give 4 steps and basically like a guideline, and you take people through these 4 steps. Would you kindly touch on the steps? And I'm really fascinated that you included number 1. And the reason why, both as a Navy vet, and yes, we do have military in our family. So, there's a certain stigma, I think, when you're in the military, extremely strong, powerful. You don't really get into the touchy-feely, and yet these are the people with the biggest hearts. My father was in the Army. My brother-in-law was a Marine. Just wanting to help and serve constantly, combined with medicine and as a coach. Your first step, you talk about knowing your why, understanding your purpose. And Mark and I especially, everything is about vision and purpose. I talk a lot about promises. A promise is something that hasn't happened yet, and staying on that path to that greater vision. Can you talk about why that's so incredibly important in brain health?
Absolutely. So there's actually literature that supports this too, but people that wake up every day with a purpose actually live longer. Like, that's a statistic, which is powerful to me. And I opened the book with a fun story about a 103-year-old patient of mine that I had in medical school. And this was, at the time, was the oldest person that I've ever treated, or at least seen. And it struck me when I asked this gentleman, what's your secret? And he said, you got to wake up every day with a purpose. And that's the first time I'd heard that as a 26-year-old or whatever I was years and years ago. But I've asked the same thing of all my patients that have made it into good health into old age. And again, the data supports this. And that is the single answer that I get every single time. And when we think about it, if we don't have an end goal or a target or a compass heading or whatever metaphor we want to tag to this, all the stressors in life are going to push us off course. I mean, life is messy, and we deal with unexpected things all the time. Mark and I have talked about that. You've got to plan for the unexpected, and and as Mark says, kind of operate with your back against the wall, ready for anything. Right? We've got to have that, because we know life is going to throw unexpected things at us. I like the early loss I endured when I was a kid, and just unexpected diagnoses that come up for people, things like this. So if you have that destination in mind, and you know where you're going, and you know it's important, if you have the vision, you have the why, then it's really easy. It's a reverse engineering of the plan to get you there. Because you say, all right, well, here's the goal, and then how do I get to the next step and the next step, and you just iterate that back to where am I today, and then you know where you're going to go. So that's as simple as I can make it, as far as starting with why and starting with purpose. I think that's something that you and maybe your audience are perhaps familiar with. But again, it's not just an anecdote, and it's not just something that we say. I mean, there's actual medical science behind this that it's effective.
Mark, I think one of the things that you do brilliantly is really helping to uncover the why for a lot of your clients, and then connecting them to our network to help them fulfill those goals. Would you kind of connect the dots in how what Dr. Williamson is doing and really helping people to uncover their why can help so many people in all areas, not just in their personal life, in their overall health, but also how that is directly connected to your financial well-being?
I would almost say the way I hear what Ryan's saying to me is that your future always has to be bigger than your past, in the sense that, when you deal with people who, for instance, have a seminal moment in life like retirement, um, you see these, and I'll talk about men for a minute, but it's the same thing for women. You see a guy who retires at 65, and he's 65 and he looks like he's 45. And then he retires, and 2 years later, he's 67 going on 87, because his world was as it got smaller, 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 smaller. And so I think that for a lot of the people that I work with, who are generally more affluent than not, money is not their number one issue. Their number one issue is purpose. And you see those folks that, I find some people, sometimes they don't die, they just run out of friends, or they just run out of things to do, or run out of purpose. So I think that's when I hear Ryan say that, in terms of that purpose, is he also talked about, in the next book I'm writing, we talked about, our pyramid to create multi-generational wealth, but also a life by design. And it was interesting when I talked to Ryan, and I talked to his wife, that they are very purposeful. They are going to change the world. But it was just as important to them to change the world as it was to have a life by design, a line that he and Corey were for themselves. And I'd love to hear how he came to that conclusion, because for our generation, Lisa, it was about go, 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 go. And the life by design, didn't hit me until a few years ago.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. I think that's exactly right. And unfortunately, I see this regularly in both men and women, where an individual retires and they become empty nesters, and the kids are off to college or their job or wherever, and health declines rapidly. And for women in particular, this is a peri and a postmenopausal issue. A statistic that doesn't get talked about a lot is the fact that of typical Alzheimer's cases, nearly 2/3 are women. And while the science is catching up to that, it really stems from the hormonal changes in a woman's body postmenopausally. At least that's what the literature suggests. And for men or women, it really does get down to this idea of purpose, because if your main identity, which for most of us is what we do for a living or a career most of our lives, if that goes away, then if you've not replaced that with something, you're not motivated to do all of the things that actually keep you looking like that 45-year-old, like Mark said, or if you're Mark, looking like you're 35. So it's important that you get up every day and that you move and that you're social, and that, God forbid you lose a friend or two, that you're networking and you're growing your network and you're learning about new people and how the world works, and you're staying engaged, and maybe you're traveling if you like to travel. And this, Lisa, this may be a good time to interject what I was talking about by our design and our biology, because humans are designed to work in a very predictable, simple manner, because that's just been the way we've evolved and we've lived for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And our social and our technological evolution has rapidly, in a matter of just a few short decades, grossly outpaced that way of life. And as a result, we experience this premature decline, and in my view, it's very preventable.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the group coaching that you do, which I think is phenomenal, and the type of client that really will come seek you out?
Yes. So our group coaching membership, our longevity and legacy membership, is a really fun community where I host Zoom calls twice a month, and we get together and basically do this. We have health related conversations about whatever the topic of the day is. I started with a lecture series to give everyone sort of a foundational content on what I think everyone needs to know about how to implement a healthy, impactful life. And we've transitioned to more of an open discussion, which I think has been impactful for people as well, where it's sort of popcorn issues. and we're actually coming full circle again to run through the basics again, because I think people are starting to drift because we all need reminding. So that's been very fun. But as far as who, I mean, anybody to use Mark's language here, I think anyone who views their future is bigger than their past. That's a great way to put it. And what I mean by that is we have young women that are in their late teens and early 20s. We have older gentlemen that are in their 60s and 70s. And we have everybody in between, from entrepreneurs to business owners to employees to authors. I mean, it's a very diverse group. And I can't put my finger on it other than everyone in there's got a brain, everyone in there's motivated and wants to show up and contribute. And everyone has a vision of what's important to them, of their why, of what they want to go do. And they just want to learn and get into a different room and contribute to the world.
Ryan, Lisa and I have embraced stem cells. We've embraced concierge medicine. We've embraced blood chemistry testing, other things, or at least I have on the blood side, where I get my blood tested, all those things. If you're sitting here, you talked about those folks, but specifically, I think people would want to know exactly what does that look like, because it keeps, the biggest thing in my practice is anti-aging. People want to, people, they have money, so they want to reverse age. And, I think one of the things that would be really helpful to people, my background is finance and economics. I didn't do sciences. So the idea is, I wish I would have had somebody like you come in my life 30 years ago, not doing what I've done, maybe over the last 5 or 6 years. So what's specific, be very specific so that people are out there saying, hey, I know I want to go in that direction, but exactly how do I do it?
So first off, Mark, it is never too late, regardless of where anyone is in life. So I want to be clear about that. It's never too late to start, never too late to make a change. And one of my favorite examples of that, we caught up with my grandfather was an orthopedic surgeon, also World War II Army vet, Army Air Corps. He flew P-38s, which is a great story. But anyway, he became an orthopedic surgeon after he came back from the war, and his medical partner is still alive. And Dan, Dr. Murphy, just turned 88 last year, and he shared with me that he was really starting to have a pretty serious physical decline, and that he was having some balance issues. He'd had a couple falls. And he knew how important this was. So for the first time in his life at 87, this guy goes and starts lifting weights. He starts doing leg press, lunges, working with a trainer, and he walks like he's 35. I mean, it's unbelievable to watch this man walk to and from a table at dinner. I mean, it's shocking. And now again, he's done a lot of the right things. He's had a healthy diet. He's a pretty low stress guy. He reads constantly. He's motivated, has purpose. But the physical decline really caught up with him. And my point is, here's somebody in their late 80s who has markedly changed their health span or their ability to get around. So just want to make a note on that point. But it's never too early to start either. So we'll go back to the other end of the spectrum. And that gets back to this BRAIN protocol that I was talking about. So the 5 letters in BRAIN are B for breath work. So this is all things like mindfulness, meditation, breathing exercises that lower stress in the body. R is for rest. So this is all things sleep related, recovery, anything that we've got to sleep. We've got to get regular quality sleep. We can take a deep dive on that. A is for activity. So all things exercise related. And man, if I had to pick one longevity drug out there, it would be exercise or movement. And I think people are also surprised to learn that, you don't have to be a bodybuilder or a power lifter to make that work. I mean, even just a few short minutes a day can cut your risk of dying of anything by about half, which is pretty exciting. I is intake. So that's all things nutrition related. So, whole food supplements, things like this. And then my favorite is N for nurturing. And this is everything community and relationships based. And again, when we look at our design, these are the 5 key pillars that just make the biggest difference in the world for who makes it well into older age with good health, and those who don't. And again, we can take a deep dive on any of those, Mark, if you'd like. But those are the basic buckets that people need to be thinking about that move the needle. Number one, and number two. I don't want to miss out on this either, because you mentioned stem cells and some other things, but there are a handful of medical therapies that I think have efficacy behind them. Stem cells for maybe a joint that's inflamed, maybe peptides for the right approach. But I think what a lot of people miss is they make the logical misstep of thinking, oh, I can just lean on some of these more esoteric or more expensive therapies and not do the 5 pillars of B.R.A.I.N, which are easy, by the way, they're easy. But you got to do that, because again, that's 70 to 90% right there, and then you can add on the others.
As a neurologist, specializing in one area, what makes your approach so incredibly unique is looking at the body as a whole. And specialists don't really do that. It's when you already have the headache, you lost your balance, you can't remember things. If there's something not right, that they will go and seek out a specialist, i.e. a neurologist. And what I love about this is the opportunity for people to, yes, be with like-minded people, because we thrive in communities. We know that. So you're giving people an opportunity to network with like-minded people, but also you're provoking thinking in such a way in which we're protecting our brain by taking the body as a whole, treating it that way, and looking to see which areas of improvement are necessary to have the best cognitive performance possible. And I don't know any other neurologists that are doing this. They're saying, let's look at the EEG and then we'll decide what medication you should go on. And I haven't been to, and unfortunately, I can say that I've been to quite a few neurologists. Combined, we have 5 children. My mother's 92 years old. There's a lot of family in there with concussions and accidents and longevity. And I feel what you're doing is you're really embodying the blue zones. The largest group of centenarians on the planet live in the blue zones. And you're saying, well, we can be our own blue zone. We don't need to go back to Sardinia or Costa Rica, but it's how do we incorporate that in our everyday life? And I feel that that's really where you're heading, right? With the focus and the one-on-one coaching, as well as the group coaching, and then having the medical side if necessary. Is that really your vision?
That's exactly right, Lisa. And to your very point, first off, I'm sorry that you've had to see so many neurologists. Generally, we don't always have great news for people, so that's inherent to the job, unfortunately. It's this idea that we don't have a healthcare system; we have a sick care system. And I'm in between shifts. I'm still working out in Montana at the moment, so I'm between shifts at the hospital right now. And my pager doesn't go off unless someone is actively having an emergency. To your very point, so there's already a problem that's happened. It is reactive. It's not proactive. And same thing goes with a cardiologist or a surgeon or whoever. Nobody's operating or cutting anyone open if there's not something to go take out or go after or fix, right? And that system has its place, and thank God, right? Because it saves lives. But when we look at, again, the end result of this misalignment between our biology and the modern world, as I've said, that's where the low-hanging fruit is, and that's where the opportunity cost is. And Mark mentioned my wife, Corey, earlier, and Corey and I did our honeymoon in Ravello, Italy, on the Amalfi Coast. And it is one of our favorite places to go back to. And I'll never forget, waking up to, we stayed on a lemon grove farm, our first trip out there. And it's on these very steep terraced kind of ravines with all these steps. And you wake up every morning and you've got a nice Mediterranean breeze and everyone's speaking Italian, and you smell lemons. It's beautiful. But to your point, Lisa, these are people that live in tight-knit communities. They move all day, and they wake up to the sun. They get early morning light exposure. And I'm a reasonably in shape person, but these 70-something-year-old people are running circles around the both of us, carrying, heavy buckets of lemons up and down these steps. And I'm going, there's something to be said here. This is the right lifestyle. They dine together, they break bread together. So yes, again, I think Dan Buettner's idea of the blue zones is pretty close to what many of us should be doing or thinking about doing. And again, we break down the literature of each one of those buckets back to that B.R.A.I.N protocol. Each one of those pillars really has strong evidence behind it that it actually helps. Maybe I got off on a tangent there, but anyway.
It was a lot of information that's extremely helpful. And you also, this is an Achilles heel for a lot of people, but you are on social media and you do have an incredible following on Facebook. And you now have free groups for people to join. So this isn't even you have to be financially successful to be part of your community. Would you kind of tell us where we can, how do we find you? How do we sign up for your blog? Talk a little bit about where I can go buy the book. And if you're doing any other platforms like this, I mean, I'm excited to get the podcast out because I know all of you are like, okay, I want to be part of his coaching courses. I do. So it's so incredibly necessary. How do we find you?
Well, thank you, Lisa. So yes, I part of my vision is to democratize this as much as I'm able to have access for as many people as possible, because as I said, the vast majority of what moves the needle on our health is either inexpensive or free. And that's just the truth. So if you find me on Facebook, you can look up Ryan Williamson or Dr. Ryan Williamson. You'll find me there. Probably the easiest place to send people is transcendhealthgroup.com. And I'm sure we can provide that link. That'll get you to that'll get you to the blog and the different coaching programs, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. I try to put out fun free videos on Instagram as well. I'm Dr. Williamson. So at Dr. Williamson or at Transcend Health Group. Those are our two accounts, where I just post tips or answer questions, do anything that I can to help there. And again, if people, that's all the free stuff for everybody. If people want to make an investment and buy the book, that's great. I mean, I think that's $17 to $24, depending on which version you buy. And probably the Kindle's cheaper than that. I don't know off the top of my head, but those are all on Amazon. Those are easy to find. So The Incredible Brain is the book title. You can go to Amazon, check that out. And then, if anybody wants to work together directly or wants to join our group membership, we're still accepting individuals in both cohorts. So I'd love the opportunity to talk to somebody to see if it's a good fit. And again, what that gets you is just more access to me and more personalized attention, either, just wherever people fit in.
I think it's such an incredible gift. We're heading into Thanksgiving and the holidays. And I think it's, if people are looking for those people that have everything and I don't know what to gift somebody, what an incredible gift this is to really help somebody find their purpose, to connect with others, to feel even being part. And I've taught groups for decades. When somebody wakes up and they know they have their group meeting or they know they're going to connect, that alone feels purposeful, because it's not always going there to receive. It's going there to give, and you share and somebody else gets to receive. And in that group setting, I just think that's so incredibly beautiful. So I'm so appreciative of everything that you're doing and with your background. You look really, really young to me. So I don't know how you've accomplished all of this in such a short amount of time. It feels amazing to do what we do and to share the brilliance of others on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Mark,
no, it's my pleasure.
Is there anything else you want to add? And I know you have more experience in dealing with Dr. Williamson and seeing what he's helping people to create.
No, I just think that, I think that the most important thing is, go back to why you want to have a life by design is, I used to think if you just had multi-generational wealth, that was enough. Because when you grow up dumb and broke, like we did, Lisa, you think if you have money, it'll solve all your problems. But I think what you also realize that you want to have a life by design, because if your spouse hates you, if your kids hate you, if you're sick, if you're miserable, who cares how much money you have? And so the idea is I would just encourage anybody that is looking to create a bigger, better future for themselves and think that health is important and anti-aging and the ability to have the kind of life that they'd want to have for as long as they can have it. I'd have them, you get to one of Ryan's opportunities. And I would, and I think we need to do that ourselves too, Lisa. So we'll just thank you, Ryan, for taking time out of your schedule.
Yeah. Dr. Williamson, are you familiar with the starfish on the beach story?
I am, yes.
You just remind me of the little boy walking on the beach, and for those of you that don't know the story, it's low tide, and all of the starfish washed to the shore, and a little boy's walking on the beach, and he's picking up the starfish and he's throwing them back in the ocean one at a time. And this old man said, "Little boy, what are you doing? You're never going to make a difference. Look at all these starfish and look at the size of the beach." And he picks up a starfish and he throws it back in the ocean. And he said, "Made a difference for that one." And every time we make a difference for one person, there's a domino effect in how many lives are touched. And my father had brain cancer. And people say, "At what age did you lose your dad?" I lost him on my 18th birthday, but I really lost him around 13, 14, because he was never the same. It's his brain. And that could have been prevented, but we didn't know back then. So when I saw we were doing this interview today, it really hit me. And I'm really blessed that at 92 years old, my mom has all of her faculties. And it's for all the reasons you talk about. She's going up and down flights of stairs every day. She's cleaning her home. She was president of her senior club up until a year ago. She fights for her cause. She really stays connected. She does stay on social media. Please don't follow her at your own risk. And it's everything that you're saying. And I just wish more people knew about this, because I think if we knew this way back when, I think we would have seen the signs that my dad was sick before it was too late. So I want to thank you for dedicating your life and your wife and dedicating your lives to really truly helping others, so that we can create that legacy and change more than one person at a time.
Thank you, Lisa. It really is a deeply personal mission, and I'm so sorry to hear about your dad and all the family struggles and trauma that comes with that. But I think you're right. I'm the boy tossing the starfish in that's building a starfish relocating machine. So I'm looking forward to helping more starfish get back in the ocean where they belong. And I think that's an area that we all share alignment. And this lesson has come back to me so many times that we just never know the impact we're going to have on somebody. And I mean, if we have time for one more story, this was one of the most personal losses that I sustained, was the unexpected passing of my best friend about a year ago. And I ended up working in the hospital the week after he died, and it was a tough week. I almost didn't do it, but I said, well, he would want me to go help people. So I showed up and did my job. And I ended up having to comfort a family that lost their patriarch. So the father of the family passed away. And fast forward, I think this was almost 6 months later, I'm back in the hospital, and I get a consult for this lady. I walk in her room, and immediately I recognized everybody in the room. And I said, have I seen you guys before? I mean, I hadn't seen this lady. I didn't have a note in her chart. I didn't know who she was. And she said, "Yeah, you were the doctor that helped us when my husband passed away last year." And I get emotional every time I think about it, because she said, you provided so much comfort in the worst moment in our life, and you were meant to be there. And I thought, you just never know. I mean, I almost didn't go because it was so tough to be there. But I mean, this is what it's about. It's about helping people become more, helping people have that bigger future. And I mean, that's what I'm called to do.
Yeah. You embody commitment, doing what you say you're going to do long after the feeling is gone. So thank you for the fortitude and the strength to help others. And we so appreciate you taking the time in between shifts to get your message out and let the world know what's available. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mark.
I want to thank everyone for joining us. Again, I'm Lisa D. Murphy, and this is Elevate Wellness. Have a great day, everyone.